This is the Stars and Stripes in 7, your online source for editorially independent news and information for the U.S. military community. I'm Lamont Easter. The final two F-35A Joint Strike Fighter jets have arrived at Elson Air Force Base near Fairbanks, completing the full complement of 54 aircraft stationed at the base. The base was selected in 2016 to host F-35s, spawning a base expansion that cost more than $500 million and includes 36 new buildings and 54 housing units for the F-35s. Combined with 2 squadrons of F-22s at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, Alaska will have more operational fifth-generation assets than anywhere else in the world. With the capability to fly more than 12 hours at a time, the F-35s can reach almost anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere in one mission. The expansion also includes personnel, with about 3,500 new active-duty airmen and their dependents stationed at the base. The Department of Veterans Affairs has unveiled its Equity Action Plan, which the agency said would remove hurdles for marginalized veterans to access health care, benefits, and services. The 18-member Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access Task Force had issued 88 recommendations. One of the recommendations from the task force was to collect information from patients and employees about their race, ethnicity, gender identity, and sexual orientation. The agency said it's addressing the recommendation by launching a Data for Equity strategy, which will help the agency identify and remove disparities for women, veterans of color, LGBTQ+, and other veterans of underserved communities. The equity strategy will coordinate the VA's data on health care, disability benefits, and other services. Task force members also suggested the VA do more outreach to underserved communities of veterans, such as those living in rural or remote areas or veterans who speak little English. In September, the VA announced LGBTQ+ veterans who were kicked out of the military under the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy of the 1990s and 2000s will now be eligible for government benefits. Matthew Butler spent 27 years in the Army, but it took a day in jail to convince him his post-traumatic stress disorder was out of control. Butler tried antidepressants, therapy, and a support dog, but his arrest made it clear none of it was working. He eventually found psychedelic drugs and says that they changed his life. Today, his run-ins with police have ended, he's happily married and reconciled with his parents. Butler is among military veterans in several U.S. states, helping to persuade lawmakers to study psychedelic mushrooms for therapeutic use. New studies have indicated psilocybin could be useful in the treatment of everything from major depression to alcoholism. The risk of addiction or overdose is considered low, especially under medical supervision. But there are serious psychological risks, especially for people with certain forms of mental illness or a family history of conditions like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. Today, their therapeutic use at Johns Hopkins is carefully monitored. Patients are rigorously screened and typically have at least 3 appointments. About 2/3 to 3/4 of people in studies have experienced significant improvements in their symptoms. The Food and Drug Administration designated psilocybin a breakthrough therapy in 2018. Pentagon brass have asked Congress for nearly $1 billion for anti-missile and cybersecurity programs that are not part of President Joe Biden's budget request, bringing the so-called unfunded priorities the armed services and military commands are seeking for fiscal 2023 to more than $21 billion. The Missile Defense Agency's $748 million request and U.S. Cyber Command's $236 million request are the latest of a bevy of unfunded lists provided to Congress. The Missile Defense Agency's fiscal 2023 unfunded priorities request totals $748 million, and nearly half of it would be dedicated to programs aimed at combating the hypersonic missiles China and Russia are fielding. Hypersonic missiles have the velocity of ballistic missiles but are more maneuverable and so pose greater challenges for anti-missile systems. The agency also wants more money to fund a number of other futuristic technologies. When a bakery oven on Okinawa that supplies U.S. military bases, commissaries, and schools on the island broke down, Yokota Air Base flew to the rescue. The Okinawa Bakery plant at Camp Kistner supplies 32 military facilities and restaurants there, including 4 commissaries, 12 military dining facilities, and 13 Defense Department schools. Exchange bakeries bring a taste of home to those serving overseas. The saga began February 23rd when the Yokota Bakery plant received a call from Okinawa. By that Friday morning, the U.S. military on Okinawa would be out of baked goods. The bakers there had no estimate for when their oven would come back online. Could Yokota help? Operation Okido was born. Not quite a day after the call, the Yokota Bakery had produced 19 pallets stacked with the baked goods to ship south. Within 2 days, it produced another 28 pallets for a total of 47, along with nearly 1,000 boxes and 14,000 packs of bread, buns, and muffins. The Yokota bakers did that while also meeting their production schedule for their regular customers. The oven was back in service March 10th. On a final note, Ramstein Intermediate School held a party for its students in celebration of the Month of the Military Child. U.S. military bases and schools hold special events in April to honor military families and their children. At Ramstein Air Base, service members, parents, and staff members greeted children as they walked up the stairs to school. The base fire department and its mascot, Sparky, also joined the festivities. The school gave all students and staffers purple t-shirts and buttons symbolizing support for military children. After students' arrival, the celebration continued in the courtyard with the U.S. Air Force's In Europe rock band. About 745 students in grades 3 through 5 attend the school. And that is all for this edition of Stars and Stripes in 7.